carried me and it just dropped it. This one was a little bit harder for me to get into. Back to the characters here, I tracked everything else there. Get stabbed. Yeah, stabbed. I could not believe what I was listening to. I annotated it a lot. Hi, and welcome to my channel. If you are new here, hello, my name is Mabel, and this is Mabel Journals, where we talk about books and we talk about journals. And if you've been here before, hi, and welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back to another video. In today's video, as the title suggests, I am going to be doing my March reading wrap-up, and then I am going to do a flip through of my reading journal as well. So make sure to give this video a like if you enjoy it, and let's just get started. So before we jump into the books, I do have a few disclaimers, 3 to be exact. So let's quickly go over those. Number 1 is these are my opinions and how I feel currently, and that could change. Even if we don't agree on how we feel about these books, it doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation about it, a respectful conversation about it. In fact, I encourage you to leave a comment on any difference of opinion, or if you share the same opinion, that'd be. Number 2 is the amount of books doesn't matter, whether it's 1 or 2 or 10 or 20. What matters is that we're actually reading and that we're enjoying our books. Quality over quantity, always. Lastly, and perhaps the most important of all, please, oh please, oh please, for the love that is good on this earth, look up trigger warnings. It is an important act of self-care that you look out for your own well-being and you prepare yourself by looking up triggers before reading any book. All right, so now that that has been said, we can now move on to the books. So the first book I read in the month of March was Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler, and I was lucky enough to read it through Libro FM, through their influencer program. So thank you so much, Libro FM, for letting me be a part of that. Adelaide is a book that references topics of self-discovery, depression, and love. Our main character, Adelaide, is living in London and originally from the United States. And we follow her through the course of her new relationship that she has. And she's determined to make this work. And throughout the whole story, we delve in and out of her past relationships where she references experiences and situations that she's learned from and that she's decided she doesn't want to go through again. Personally, I relate deeply to Adelaide because she is a giver, a lover, a romantic, and in the mess of it all, she just kind of forgets to take care of herself, and she forgets that she also needs to receive that love and also needs to be taken care of. The story absolutely took me with it, carried me, and it just dropped it. I could not believe what I was listening to, and usually I need to see the words when I'm reading, but listening to this audiobook was different. It opened a new door for me. I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars, and I totally recommend this book, but look up triggers. Please look up triggers. Next, I read Deep as the Sea, Red as the Sky by Rita Chang Epig, and this I also read a little early. It was through NetGalley, so thank you so much to Bloomsbury Publishing for accepting my request. This one was a little bit harder for me to get into simply because there was a lot of historical context that I needed to familiarize myself with. It felt like a lot of information was being dumped in certain parts, but after I got through that, it was kind of like smooth sailing, pun intended. So we follow this female pirate who kind of witnesses her husband and co-commander get stabbed. Yeah, stabbed by a member of the Portuguese fleet, and he ends up dying, and Shek immediately has to kind of like figure out the next steps, and by immediately I mean she doesn't even have time to grieve, because if she doesn't, I mean, he was the reason that the fleet even respected a woman co-commanding them. So we kind of just follow her through her journey, not only trying to keep this fleet, but also to maintain the fleet's survival during the uncertain times that they're going through. So we kind of dive into her past, we dive into anecdotal tales that are kind of connected to the history, and through those things, we understand why she makes certain decisions. So I ended up rating this 4 out of 5. Even though it was rough to start, it was really good. The next book I read is Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Big gal, if I do say so myself. I tracked the characters here. I tracked everything else there. Where do I even begin? I put this one off for a while. Not just because of the sheer size of it, but also because of the dense material. It is a high fantasy with multiple POVs, points of view. So I knew this was gonna require my full attention. We actually follow 4 different points of view throughout. And we start with Tane. I hope I'm pronouncing the characters' names right. If not, you can come at me at the comments. But anyways, starting with Tane, who has kind of built herself from the ground up, and she's training to be a dragon rider, and we meet her days before the actual competition begins. And then we meet Niclays. He's a banished chemist who is filled with grief and is completely misunderstood individual. He's trying to find a way back to his homeland, but is put in an even riskier position when he's asked to help an outsider. And then we meet Iyad. Again, sorry if I'm mispronouncing the names. I hope I'm saying it right, but Iyad, I don't want to give too much away about this character because she does have like a secret life that we kind of learn about later on. But she's basically tasked with taking care of Queen Sabran, the Queen of Innis, and she is the queen who is expected to give the kingdom an heir to the throne, a female heir to the throne. And last but not least, we meet Loth, who is really good friends with Sabran, Queen Sabran, so much so that someone within the palace actually had him like removed, like secretly removed to another country so that he doesn't distract the queen from getting married. Because she needs to get married because the whole country needs an heir. So these 4 characters eventually connect in various ways since they all have basically the same mission, which is to save the kingdoms from this terrible like fate that is destined to kind of rise again. Ended up rating this a 4 out of 5. I'm really excited to read the next one, which I believe is the prequel and is a standalone prequel. It's A Day of Fallen Night. I have it somewhere in my library. Next, I read In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune, and thank you so much to Tor Publishing for sending me a physical copy early. I really appreciate it. So this has been described as a Pinocchio retelling, Pinocchio/Wall-E retelling, and I think that's pretty spot on. I think I will add that I think it has Big Hero 6 in there as well. I don't know if you've watched that movie, but I'd add that to the mix as well. So like a combination of all 3. So this book still has a lot of those things I love from Klune's writing. The fantastic world building, the character depth, newfound family, but it's different since this is considered adult fantasy, and we have certain like sexual humor as well as like sexual education. There is a lot of great dialogue on understanding your body and understanding your sexual interests. I'm purposely staying away from telling you too much or revealing too much of the plot because I went into it knowing the bare minimum, and that really prepared me for a great reading experience because everything was kind of like a mystery and we were just like discovering as we go. I rated this a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it and I totally recommend this as well. I annotated it a lot. Then I participated in the Trans Rights Readathon on TikTok that occurred from March 20th to March 27th, and in addition to reading books by trans and non-binary authors, we were also encouraged to donate to trans organizations. I was able to read 6 books in the span of that time, and I donated $150 to the Hudson Pride Center. I started the week reading Almost Always by Edward Underhill. I follow the author on TikTok and he talked about the book and how it had queer love and a little bit of angst, and I was kind of just hooked. It is about Miles, a trans boy who sets 2 goals for New Year's, right? The first one is that he wants to win this piano competition against his rival, and then the second one is that he wants to win back his ex. And so Miles spends a lot of time practicing the piano in this like secluded hall when he meets someone who is exactly like what he wishes his ex-boyfriend was like. There's drama, there's competition, there's angst, as was promised, and there's queer love, which is beautiful. And I absolutely enjoyed this book. I thought it was a great read. I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. So the next book I read as part of the Trans Rights Readathon was Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. And I started reading this through the Libby app, but when I finished it, I loved it so much that I had to buy the finished copy. I had to buy the physical copy. So this one is about a trans boy named Yadriel, and he is part of a secret Brujex community, and they are basically connected to the spirits of the world. And so Yadriel was born into this family, and he was believed to be a bruja, but spends a good portion of the book just kind of proving that he's meant to be a brujo. Brujas are the females, or traditionally the females in the family, who are given healing powers, and brujos are the men who are tasked with opening up portals for the spirits to go to a different realm. And usually at the age of 15, there's a ceremony that is created to give them their powers. But since Yadriel refused to be a bruja, then they refused to do his spiritual ritual with him. So Yadriel decides, you know what, I'm gonna do it myself. So him and his cousin Maritza end up doing the ritual. And literally that very night, something kind of crazy happens. So his family is, like, since they're so connected to the dead and the spirits, they feel whenever something terrible happens to any of them. And so they felt something happen to their cousin. And since they felt him kind of like die, they were trying to find his spirit before El Dia de los Muertos. So Yadriel thinks he feels his cousin's spirit somewhere, and he kind of just frees it, only to find out that it's a different spirit. And it's just like this other mystery that he has to solve before returning to his cousin's aid. I loved this book so much. The magic system, the storytelling, the characters, it was just so well done. And people describe this as like Disney's Coco, which it definitely has some similarities. I gave it a 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. I think this was my only 5 out of 5 in the whole month. Maybe. I don't remember. The next book I read for the Trans Rights Readathon was Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender. This was a book of self-discovery and understanding for our main character, Felix. Felix is a trans boy in high school who's still trying to figure out who he wants to love, how he wants to love, and is also trying to figure out how he wants to identify and what he wants to do with his career and who he wants to be when he grows up. And so he knows that he doesn't want to go back, but before he transitioned, which is why he's deeply hurt and enraged when someone makes a gallery of his old pictures, his old Instagram pictures, which are like locked away secretly, and his dead name as well. And so they display it for the whole entire school to see. And Felix quickly draws suspicion on who he thinks it might be, and he kind of sort of creates his plans for revenge. I loved how this ended. I especially loved the connections that were made between the characters. I also loved the connection with the title at the end, which was really cool and fun to see. So I rated this a 4 out of 5. The next book I read as part of the Trans Rights Readathon is Black Flamingo by Dean Ada. This is written in verse, where we basically journey through the whole life of our main character, Michael. I love the way so much of his life is expressed. This book is heavily character driven, so we don't have a lot of plot, but we have a lot of character development and beautiful lyrical words. So I think that that's definitely enough. I ended up rating this a 3.5 out of 5. Then I read The Feeling of Falling in Love by Mason Deaver. So we follow Neil, a trans boy in high school who's currently hooking up with Jason, and they're both really good friends. So they've decided that they're gonna be wedding dates for Neil's brother's wedding. They were both invited individually. So when Jason tells Neil that he's in love with him, Neil is just like, I don't know if this is gonna work out, and they end up calling it off. But they're still supposed to both go to this wedding together. And so Neil's tremendously smart idea is to just bring someone else. And this will appease his family, and it will also isolate Jason, according to Neil. So that's what we got going on here. Obviously, things go wrong and other things go right. Neil is not a lovable character, but that doesn't mean I didn't love him at least a little bit at the end. I rated this a 4 out of 5. Then I read The Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimmons. This was my last book for the Trans Rights Readathon, and it was also my last book of the month. Spencer is new to this high school and decides he wants to keep his trans identity a secret, but when he tries out for the soccer team and is offered a position, certain obstacles kind of get in his way. They are also living in a town that has opposing views, and while one side is a little bit more traditional and kind of set in their Christian values, the other is more liberal and accepting of other lifestyles. There's a lot of turmoil and movement for what is right, and I rated this book a 4 out of 5. Overall, I'd say my reading month was pretty good. I enjoyed most books, and I am looking forward to reading more this month. Please let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books or if any of these books are in your TBR. Now we're gonna move on to the second part of the video, which is me flipping through my March pages. So that concludes this video. Thank you so much for staying till the very end. I really appreciate it. Leave a comment if you've read any of these books or if you plan on reading any of them, or what your initial thoughts are based on my summaries. Follow me on my socials. If you stayed to the very end of the video, leave me a stacked book emoji so that I know you stayed. It's super sweet, and I just love to know who those people are. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one.